If I was trying to rig the outcome of this primary, trust me, I could have done, there are so many things that we, not I, we could have done.
The exit polling data in New York State shifted 12%. A shift of 2% is fraud.
People had to wait an entire work day in line to vote. We're talking lines that stretch the distance of upwards of a half a mile.
Who's to blame for these long lines?
Well, the voters for getting in line.
It is a system that is rigged in favor of the rich and the powerful and the politically connected.
They said, you can't get your information. Your volunteers, your supporters.
I did see President Clinton at the Phoenix airport.
Using this has allowed her to evade actual campaign donation limitations in a massive fashion.
Reports of chairs being thrown.
I did not receive any questions from CNN.
Millions of Bernie Sanders donors may have legal recourse against the DNC.
Their only defense is, you're damn right they cheated, and you should have been smart enough to know it.
The defense lawyers proclaimed in open court on the record in response to one of the judge's questions that if the DNC wanted to, they could go into a back room and smoke cigars and pick the candidates.
Americans do not want to believe that we have people stealing our elections, and they must come to the realization there are people in this country who want to steal elections, and we must stop them.
Some people, I guess, would argue that such a lawsuit does harm to the Democratic Party, but in fact, this is the only way to save the Democratic Party, because any party is not going to attract voters if they blatantly rig the primaries or argue they're allowed to.
One thing about victims of fraud is that there can be no reconciliation between the victim and the perpetrator of frauds until there has been justice.
In January 2017, Anita Dunn, Hillary Rosen, and SKD Knickerbocker were named as the third most powerful player in politics by Politico.
What does SKD Knickerbocker do? Well, they use people like Hillary Rosen and Anita Dunn, who used to be the White House communications director.
You write about Anita Dunn. Tell me about Anita Dunn.
Anita Dunn is a longtime Democratic operative. She was one of the top aides for President Obama's 2008 campaign. She was a communications director for a time.
One of the powerhouse officials in the White House is communications chief Anita Dunn.
We have never had that in the White House. I'm amazed at you people who call for openness and transparency.
Chip,
really
let's have this discussion at the conclusion of the town hall meeting.
It's a pattern of controlling the press.
Well, they use people like Hillary Rosen and Anita Dunn to bring in lobbyists, basically, and to I'm sorry, they're not lobbyists, according to Politico now. They're having dialogues with these people.
Despite working for top corporations lobbying the government, Dunn's role has escaped scrutiny under ethics rules that subject consultants to less oversight than lobbyists.
I'm not a lobbyist. I never have been a registered lobbyist, and I do public relations.
But they bring in big companies so that the White House will listen to those companies and basically do what they're told.
They are masters of media manipulation, cover-up specialists who also have the media and political clout to push complicit people into positions of great influence in media and the United States government, where they can further SKDK's often troubling agendas. Hillary Rosen has been paid millions to lobby for banks, oil companies, and corporations, including BP after their oil spill.
Even if the leak was stopped today, it wouldn't change the fact that these waters still contain oil from what is now the largest spill in American history.
BP pleaded guilty to 11 counts of manslaughter, 2 misdemeanors, and 1 felony count for lying to Congress.
You, Leibovich, look at that crude oil flowing into the Gulf, and you see an equally large flow of cash spreading across Washington, covering our nation's capital to, quote, as you say, manage the crisis.
Last week, the Justice Department announced a $20.8 billion penalty against BP for the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil rig explosion and the subsequent oil leak. While this was a great announcement, what they didn't tell us was the fact that $15.3 billion of that $20.8 billion fine is a tax write-off. As part of this agreement, the company also gets a $5.35 billion tax windfall.
It's job of Hillary Rosen and her friends to bring in these rich corporations to influence the Obama White House in favor of the rich, in favor of corporate America, and actually, of course, multinational corporations. And then there's General Mills and PepsiCo. They represent them on lowering the food nutrition standards that the Obama White House wants to push for.
Anita Dunn helped Michelle Obama set up her Let's Move program to stop obesity.
The average child watches thousands of food advertisements each year, and 86% of these ads are for products loaded with sugar, fat, or salt.
Then Anita Dunn signs on as a consultant to the food manufacturing and media firms trying to block restrictions on sugary foods targeting children. Her husband, by the way, and this is coincidental, I'm sure, happened to be the president's White House counsel.
Anita Dunn has emerged as one of President Obama's top advisors while still running the consulting firm Knickerbocker. Client list includes TransCanada, the Canadian company seeking Obama's approval of the Keystone XL oil pipeline, as well as General Electric, AT&T, Time Warner, and the military contractor Pratt & Whitney.
$24 billion. That's how much the biggest for-profit colleges in this country took in last year in federally funded student aid money.
Washington Post Corporation makes 58% of its revenue. 58, so that's over half of its revenue through these for-profit colleges.
Kaplan Education, that's the for-profit colleges. Remember how President Obama was going to get tough on them and decided to make literally 5% change? Okay, it was a joke. They watered it down until it was nothing. Well, one of the reasons is SKD Knickerbocker is bringing in all their representatives into the White House and going, come on, we're all friends here. It's okay, be my friend. And next thing you know, that legislation was decimated and the for-profit education continues to bilk the U.S. government out of untold millions of dollars and billions of dollars overall for the industry.
Even though some of these Kaplan colleges throughout the country, and there are several of them, do not have accreditation, what will happen is the recruiters will advertise the schools by saying that they are accredited, right? So they mislead the students, then they go ahead and they take out the loans to go to these institutions, and then they get a degree that doesn't really get them where they want to go.
I am in $15,000 debt.
$19,000. $8,000. $20,000.
$10,000.
$10,000. We are almost $50,000 in debt.
Right before I was about to graduate, I found out from one of my professors that my degree would not be accredited. I worked so hard for so many years to have my degree mean absolutely nothing.
They want charters, private schools, learning companies, etc. Take more of the public education money, funnel it to those private companies.
The firm also represents a number of business coalitions, including one seeking to reduce tax rates on around $1 trillion in offshore profits.
They are, of course, arguing against labor unions. So these are so-called Democratic strategists like Hillary Rosen and Anita Dunn who go to the White House and sometimes bring representatives of these companies. Hillary Rosen brought one of her clients from Microsoft, an executive named John Kelly, to a state dinner at the White House.
Part of the move of this White House towards transparency is to make sure that anybody can go on anytime and see who's visiting the White House, because it means that there's a greater degree of transparency and accountability.
When asked about Hillary Rosen's 35 visits to the White House by 2012, Press Secretary Jay Carney said,
First of all, I haven't seen the records. I don't know that Hillary Rosen, I know 3 personally, women named Hillary Rosen, so I'm not sure that that those represent the person we're talking about.
Sounded a little insulting, don't you think?
I don't know any other Hillary Rosens, but Jay must. So, yeah, you know, it's politics. It is what it is.
She actually is your employee, not ours. She's she works for CNN. I think CNN would not allow her to be an operative for our campaign or the DNC. She's not. She never has been.
Hillary Rosen is with me, CNN political commentator, Democratic strategist, and Clinton supporter.
For those unhappy with President Trump, don't blame the Republicans. Blame these so-called Democratic strategists. With SKDK's help, the Democratic National Committee pushed the People's Choice, Bernie Sanders, out of the primary, and then pushed journalists to set up Trump as what they called a Pied Piper candidate who would crumble the Republican Party and take out more formidable opponents.
Dems fear Jeb Bush the most. They say that Bush comes from a political dynasty and has a broader appeal and a greater ability to use the Bush name to fundraise and appeal to women and independent voters.
They were manipulating both sides, gambling our country for the chance to move SKDK's already extreme clout into the stratosphere, causing even more damage to our media, government, and country.
Now, Clinton's camp also insisted that Trump and other extremists should be elevated to leaders of the pack, and media outlets should be told to take them seriously. Now, why would you do this? Well, you pick someone so extreme that I look sane and really awesome in comparison, so that my right-wing ideas, my support of fracking and the Trans-Pacific Partnership don't look so bad, especially compared to this really, really crazy guy over here on the right.
I mean, think about this. We have managed to come up with two people here on the Republican and the Democratic side that a majority of Americans don't like and even worse, don't trust. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that the main appeal of both candidates now is that they're not the other candidate.
Bernie Sanders is within striking distance of Hillary Clinton in both Iowa and New Hampshire.
Sanders also outperforming Clinton in hypothetical matchups against the Republicans.
We are fighting to maintain our democracy and prevent our government from being owned by a handful of billionaires and the politicians they employ.
Bernie Sanders continuing to draw in massive crowds. This is at the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena. Look at all those people.
In the last quarter, he raised $33 million, just $4 million shy of Secretary Clinton.
Despite Clinton raising $112 million, she's worried about a surging Sanders.
He does way better amongst independents, way better amongst young people, significantly better amongst women, better amongst conservatives and independents. And he's the liberal one.
Trust me, I could have done, there are so many things that we could have done to enhance the campaign of one candidate over another.
Let's go back and review some of the things. Obama and Clinton debated each other about 25 times. However, this time, the DNC literally coordinated with Clinton's campaign to only sanction 6 debates.
This is the only Democratic debate here in New Hampshire before the primary. A lot of people were complaining about the fact that it was a Saturday before Christmas. Not a lot of viewership. Do you think that was intentional on the part of the DNC?
Yeah, I do. I mean, in Iowa, when the debate was held, it was the night of the big football game in Iowa. Do you think that's a coincidence?
It was mind-boggling to me that he was complaining about the number of debates because things were going just fine.
One of his supporters in the audience called President Obama.
There was a little bit of pushback when she defended this position in New Hampshire over the weekend at the New Hampshire Democratic Party's convention meeting. Many of the people in the room are delegates. This isn't just like, Bernie's crowd who wandered in through the door from the local college.
My friends, what's more important, drawing a contrast with Republicans or arguing about debates? Let's focus on our mission and the task at hand. Enough is enough.
Debbie, respectfully, having debates is how you focus on your contrast with Republicans.
This sort of rigged process has never been attempted before. Whose decree is this exactly? Where did it come from? To what end? For what purpose? What national or party interest does this decree serve? How does this help us make our case to the American people? One debate in Iowa? That's it? One debate in New Hampshire? That's all we can afford? Is this how the Democratic Party selects its nominee? Or are we becoming something less, something else? Whatever happened to the tradition of open debates and a 50-state strategy?
I would go back to Martin O'Malley way back in Minneapolis. I went to the DNC meeting in Minneapolis. It was a set piece for Hillary Clinton. And I'm just saying, look, so both parties are complaining about their party chairs.
To that debate schedule. That's just nuts.
No,
Not true.
When they realized that just doing 6 debates would probably be a controversial decision, they decided to implement an exclusivity clause that would prohibit candidates from participating in non-DNC sanctioned debates.
The scheduling of the televised debates during times that aren't likely to draw big audiences, freezing his access to that key voter database before the Iowa and New Hampshire caucus and primary, characterizing it as a theft of data when really that isn't what happened. Those are things that set the tone early, and then you had this joint fundraising committee between the DNC and the Clinton campaign. That's something that Sanders saw as very unfair, and so did his supporters.
We need a commander-in-chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change.
You were a member of the DNC committee and you recently resigned and endorsed Sanders. Why now, and why did you leave?
You know, as vice chair of the DNC, all DNC officers are supposed to remain neutral in our Democratic primaries, obviously including our presidential primary.
What about any retaliation? The Clintons have had a well-oiled machine in Washington for years. Do you fear any retribution from the Clintons, and what's your relationship been like with it?
Well, you know, I was heavily warned by people who care about me to not endorse Senator Sanders because of that fear of retaliation. And look, that fear is something that exists in a lot of folks that I've heard from.
Now, she knew that there would be a lot of political fallout because she saw the tactics firsthand. I mean, she saw how when she spoke out about the limited debate schedule, she was disinvited to one of the Democratic debates by Debbie Waserman Schultz.
I was told that I was no longer welcome to come to the debate.
We were very disappointed to hear that you would resign your position with the DNC so you could endorse Bernie Sanders. When we met over dinner a couple of years ago, I was so impressed by your intellect, your passion, and commitment to getting things done on behalf of the American people. For you to endorse a man who has spent almost 40 years in public office with very few accomplishments doesn't fall in line with what we previously thought of you. Hillary Clinton will be our party's nominee. And you standing on ceremony to support the sinking Bernie Sanders ship is disrespectful to Hillary Clinton. You have called both myself and Michael Kives before about helping your campaign raise money. We no longer trust your judgment, so we'll not be raising money for your campaign.
This violates the DNC's own rules. This is from the Democratic Charter and bylaws. Quote, the chairperson shall exercise impartiality and even-handedness as between the presidential candidates and campaigns. The chairperson shall be responsible for ensuring that the national officers and staff of the Democratic National Committee maintain impartiality and even-handedness during the Democratic Party presidential nominating process. That is Article 5, Section 4 of the DNC's own charter and bylaws.
They're not allowed to hate one of their own candidates. It was a rigged system. Bernie said it was rigged. Hillary people said, oh, it's rigged, you're a conspiracy nut. It was rigged.
And here's some more evidence. Here's another leaked email from the DNC press secretary, Mark Paustenbach, wondering if there's a good Bernie narrative for a story, which is that Bernie never had his act together, that his campaign was a mess.
The Democratic National Committee remains neutral in this primary based on our rules. The work we did to prepare for Hillary Clinton to be our nominee.
Are you for her now, unequivocally, or do you want to wait to see if she takes your advice on moving to a more progressive agenda?
I think like a lot of people in this country, I want to see a vision.
Bill de Blasio's self-aggrandizing on Meet the Press at Hillary Clinton's expense won't go unnoticed. Hashtag ridiculous. Hillary Rosen also said, Hillary Clinton fought for the middle class and poor families long before Bill de Blasio could even articulate any vision at all. Bill de Blasio, you did not properly bow before the Queen. How dare you? It has been noticed. These are the kind of things that turn people against Hillary Clinton.
Democratic mayor of New York City is also dead serious about Hillary Clinton.
About Hillary.
He's supporting Hillary for president.
All in. What are you doing today?
Today's a good day. I feel really good.
Yeah?
I feel really good about Hillary today.
Yeah?
And look, I've been all over the city campaigning for her. Mm-hmm. And I'm feeling a lot of enthusiasm for her. She served us for 8 years. She did a great job. People feel connected to her.
I just have to say, thanks for the endorsement, Bill. Took you long enough.
Oh, snap!
Let's not forget about the money laundering scheme.
More details have now been released about the scope of Hillary Clinton's state-level fundraising vehicle and how using this has allowed her to evade actual campaign donation limitations in a massive fashion.
Normally, you can only give $10,000, but hey, wait, what if I gave $10,000 to each of the different state parties? Well, I can do that. And what if those state parties then took the money and just gave it back to Hillary Clinton? Hey, it turns out that's legal. Let's go ahead and do that. So instead of having a $10,000 cap, when I include my spouse, I have over a $1.3 million cap, as long as you're willing to launder the money. And it turns out these states and these Democratic parties, and especially the DNC, were more than happy to launder the money for Hillary Clinton, even before a single vote was cast in the primaries.
Wow. So she goes and she raises all this money. Some of it just goes directly to her. Some goes to the DNC, which will then be spent on her. Some is spent by the fund on her. Yep. And some is given to the Democratic state committees, which they then a day later send to the DNC to be spent on her. And then for their trouble, they keep 1%, which is less than like a Wall Street fee on the money transfer.
Ironic.
But the part of it that really gets to me is the attacks on Bernie Sanders and this whole notion that he's not doing anything to raise money for the party.
This is what they have been doing for the last few months, attacking Bernie Sanders, saying, well, he's not raising money for down ballot tickets. He's not raising money for the state parties.
And in reality, you're the person who's doing exactly what you're blaming him for.
Let's not forget about how you banned Bernie Sanders' access to NGP-VAN to cripple his campaign at a crucial time right before the Iowa caucus.
Now, to give you a crash course on that, NGP-VAN is a company that is headed up by somebody who used to be a Hillary Clinton staffer. And Nathaniel Perlman, the former Hillary staffer and one of the co-owners of NGP-VAN, one of his clients for his graphic design company called Graphic Casey, is a man named John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman.
2 months ago, shortly after our digital vendor told us that there was a failure in the firewall that prevents campaigns from seeing one another's data, we contacted the DNC and told them about this failure. We were very concerned that our data had been compromised, and we were assured at that time that the firewall between the campaign's data would be restored. We were actually very confident that at that time some of our data was lost to one of the other campaigns. Instead, we found out 2 days ago that once again, this sensitive and important data was compromised because the DNC and its vendor failed to protect it. We have invested enormous campaign resources in acquiring the rights to use this proprietary data. But the DNC, in an inappropriate overreaction, has denied us access to our very own data. This is data collected by hundreds of thousands of volunteers across America. This database for our campaign is funded by the over 2 million contributions that this campaign has received from people all across the country.
You shut down the most important thing, and this is behind the scenes, and so people might not get it, but if you don't have access to the voter data, that is devastating for a campaign.
And they said, you can't get your information, your volunteers, your supporters, who are you going to be calling up in New Hampshire and Iowa? And that was absolutely unacceptable, and I think over the last day or so, hundreds of thousands of people have written to the DNC saying that's wrong.
Yeah, let's go to Debbie Waserman Schultz, because I think you're going to see it for yourself.
It's not an allegation. The Sanders campaign has acknowledged that they inappropriately accessed during a brief window where the vendor that we have for our voter file during a software patch application opened the opportunity accidentally for each of the campaigns to see one another's proprietary data.
Did you learn from the vendor, or did you learn from the Sanders campaign about this breach?
We learned from the vendor. Tamron, also, I want to be clear, what we're doing is following our memorandum of understanding, our agreement that we have with each presidential campaign. They are prohibited from accessing another campaign's proprietary information, and we have the ability to suspend that campaign's access to the voter file in order to make sure that we can preserve the integrity of the voter file and ensure that there's confidence in it.
I don't understand why that would even be in a memorandum of understanding. Like, if our vendor screws up and gives you access to information that you're not supposed to have, and you access it, we'll suspend you. Really? You decided that ahead of time?
Sounds like entrapment.
Superdelegates. that automatically helped Hillary Clinton. She had a huge superdelegate lead before any voter casted their ballot.
About 30% of all the delegates you need to become the Democratic Party's presidential nominee come from people who aren't picked in any individual primary or individual caucus in any individual state. They're just elected officials and VIPs who commit to one candidate or another.
Over 400 of these superdelegates indicated their support for Secretary Clinton before anyone else was in the race.
The problem isn't that these superdelegates support Hillary Clinton. The problem is that the Democrats have allowed their nomination process to be blatantly compromised by moneyed interests here in the United States. To make matters worse, last week the DNC flung the floodgates open for special interests to shape the Democratic primary process by doing away with the rules that Barack Obama put in place to prevent lobbyists from donating to the party.
I have a bigger lead in pledged delegates than Senator Obama, when I ran against him in 2008, ever had over me.
If Americans suspect that the Democratic elite have been rigging the nomination process, then Democrats are going to have a hard time harnessing that grassroots energy that they'll need to propel their candidate to the White House.
It is a bad idea because if you go that route, you may not end up with the strongest candidate to defeat somebody like a Donald Trump.
Also, there were voting irregularities in various states that for some reason always seemed to benefit Hillary Clinton to the detriment of Bernie Sanders.
These are the 5 boroughs: Staten Island results, Manhattan results, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens. All of these votes are placed in a black box. This black box is unaccountable, untestable, privately run software from the 2 companies that you have hired to count our votes. So when the votes come out of this black box, they do not reflect the New York City or the national votes. In 22 primaries, the votes have shifted in 20 of them. The exit polling data in New York State shifted 12%. A shift of 2% is fraud.
2% is used as the boundary by the U.S. government when determining that the election in another country other than the U.S. has possibly been stolen.
5, 10, as much as 12% from the exit polling and the actual survey. These statistical numbers are impossible.
This new Stanford study found that while the polls were quite successful at predicting Clinton's numbers in states with paper trails, Clinton overperformed by an average of 9% in the states that use electronic voting machines but fail to provide paper evidence. As the study noted, the hacker Guccifer 2 released documents from the Democratic National Committee which showed a list of donors to the Clinton Foundation. 2 of the 3 companies that control the electronic voting market, namely Dominion Voting and HIG Capital, are on this list of big money donors.
Voting in New York City was marked by considerable chaos, particularly in Brooklyn, as tens of thousands of voters found their names had been removed from the rolls or that they were unable to vote at their polling station.
The admission by the city authorities that 125,000 voters were purged from the polls in one of New York City's 5 boroughs alone.
The area that includes Brooklyn and Kings County. That's the home of Bernie Sanders. I mean, this is probably the most politically active county in the entire state, and that seems to be where 126,000 people got knocked off the voting rolls.
Other complaints were from people saying their party affiliations had been switched, preventing them from voting. The New York Post reports even a former Democratic Party official who was running for Congress was told his name was not on the voter roll at his polling station in Harlem.
Why were all those voters purged? Why did people who've been voting Democrat their whole lives all of a sudden become unaffiliated?
The Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, has officially launched an investigation. He states, "I am deeply troubled by the volume and consistency of voting irregularities, both in public reports and direct complaints to my office's voter hotline, which received more than 1,000 complaints in the course of the day yesterday. That's why today we have opened an investigation into alleged improprieties in yesterday's voting by the New York City Board of Elections. If necessary, we will initiate inquiries in additional areas of the state where voting irregularities appeared unusually high."
Jennifer Cunningham, political consultant,
lobbyist, and legal counsel. She's been called the most powerful unelected woman in New York politics.
New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer said his office had received reports of polling stations that failed to open on time and poll workers who were unable to tell voters when they would be operational. Stringer ordered an audit of New York's election authorities, citing deep concern over widespread reports of poll site problems and irregularities.
The New York City Comptroller, Scott Stringer, who is auditing the local board of elections after reports of voting issues in Tuesday's primary election, is also a Democratic delegate for Hillary Clinton.
So we all know that when turnout is low, Hillary Clinton tends to win big. Now, this was the case in Arizona. Turnout seemed pretty low. But this isn't because people didn't want to vote. They actually did. In fact, potentially hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, left or were turned away because of Arizona's voter suppression tactics.
Democrats going and finding out that they were not registered as Democrats, even though they registered that way. Now, it's a closed primary, so that's really, really important. So if they show up and it says they're a Republican or they're a Libertarian or whatever else it got switched to, they might not be able to vote.
Amidst the backlash, accusations, namely from the group Anonymous, hackers changed party status for some.
There was a data breach back east, and whether they're equating that to here, I don't know.
If you were not registered correctly, well, they tossed your vote.
We'll close in 15 minutes, but as long as you're in line, you can still vote. It's after 8 o'clock.
Will you wait in this line?
Well, we're debating because we've already done 2 hours on another line and couldn't get through.
In 2012, they had 200 polling locations in Maricopa County, so they decided to screw it up, I don't know if on purpose or just out of sheer incompetence. In a year where they thought they might get more voters, they knocked it down to 60 polling locations. They cut the number of polling locations, in other words, by 70%.
So in 2016, the estimated turnout more than doubled, which is typically good for Bernie Sanders, so we would have expected him to win because the turnout in 2012 was 300,000, and this time it was estimated to be 800,000. Now, in some counties, like Maricopa County, there was approximately 1 polling station per 21,000 people. People had to wait upwards of 5 hours to vote. Many of them left if you have a disability or you can't stand long or you just had to get back to work. Guess what happened? You had to leave. You couldn't stay there and vote.
Lines were so long, people had to wait an entire work day in line to vote. We're talking lines that stretch the distance of upwards of a half a mile.
They also ran out of ballots in a lot of places, especially in Phoenix. And then they had to go run to other places, try to find more ballots, and bring it back while people continued to wait in line. I mean, an utter debacle.
This is a theft of our democracy.
In terms of making a decision to limit the number of polling places, what if we had expanded the number of polling places and then people were upset that they were asked to come volunteer to serve as poll workers and nobody showed up?
A reporter went and confronted Helen Purcell, the county recorder in Maricopa County. Buckle up. Here we go. Here's what she had to say.
Who's to blame for these long lines?
Well, the voters for getting in line, maybe us for not having enough polling places, or as many as we usually have.
Hey, Captain of the Titanic, who's to blame for this? I'm going to guess, I'm first going to point it at the people who wanted to take a trip.
Well, no, they're not to blame for standing in line, but they went to the polling places. They could have voted early or, that was their option.
Now, finally, at 8:30 p.m., about an hour after polls closed, guess what happened? The press had declared that Hillary Clinton was the winner, even though not even 1% of votes had come in. And given the fact that there were hundreds of people lined up to vote in many districts still.
All the way up around the building, hundreds of people in line here at the Tempe Pile Adult Recreation Center.
We do not know how many thousands of people who wanted to vote yesterday in Arizona did not vote.
We live in a democracy. This isn't supposed to be happening in a democratic regime.
Just this weekend, we had Puerto Rico voting, and there was over 1,500 polling stations that were reduced to a little over 400 polling stations.
There's only about 36,000 votes for Hillary Clinton, about a little over 22,000 for Bernie Sanders. That's not a lot of votes. Now, you might not know that, obviously, because the context of how many people vote in Puerto Rico is not something that's commonly known. But actually, Puerto Rico has a great voting record, but not in this election.
This is an effort to create mass voter suppression.
Now, meanwhile, one last fact here that makes me go, tweet sent out, Democratic Party of PR of Puerto Rico tells MSNBC that the Sanders campaign is the one that requested a cut in the number of polling stations today. Now, that seems unlikely because the more people that vote, especially on the day of the election, the more it has helped Bernie Sanders. So, for example, Hillary Clinton actually does better, especially in Arizona was a great example, with mail-in ballots. So older voters tend to do mail-in ballots. But day of election, the Sanders campaign throughout this entire election has asked for more polling places, not less. So what did the Sanders camp say about these allegations that they wanted less polling places in Puerto Rico? Quote, completely false.
CNN can now project that Bernie Sanders has won the Wyoming Democratic caucuses.
Yesterday, Bernie Sanders came out on top in the Wyoming primary, having beat Hillary by 12%. But thanks to how the Democratic Party in Wyoming awards pledged delegates, in the end, Hillary ended up walking away with more delegates.
Sanders beat Hillary Clinton by 12 points, 56-44, notching his 8th win in the last 9 nominating contests.
Okay, what do we do here?
I mean, it sounds like
Nicole,
he's winning.
He's won 8 out of 9.
Yep. But he's losing.
And look, he wins by 12 points. He may not even pick up a single delegate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's a crushing victory.
I know. And listen, I think that with the super delegates that they have, I think she only has to win 30%. I mean, talk about voters feeling like a system might be rigged.
And Bernie Sanders wins 56-44% in Wyoming. The delegates rewarded Hillary Clinton 11, Bernie Sanders 7. Why does the Democratic Party even have voting booths?
No, why?
This system is so rigged.
But we always talk about voter turnout and how important it is to do your duty as a citizen. There's absolutely no reason any of those people voted.
They've turned this victory into a loss for Bernie Sanders. The guy who won ended up losing.
That, by definition, is voter disenfranchisement. So it is a rigged system on the Democratic side, even worse than the Republican side. And I don't know why Democratic voters put up with it.
If you say those are the rules, I'm gonna lunge at your
I agree
neck.
with everything you said, except I wouldn't say it's rigged. It's not rigged. It's disenfranchisement. It's not one person, one vote.
What do you call it when voters going to the voting booth doesn't matter
at
as
all
much as insiders?
A messed up system.
That is a rigged.
It's not rigged.
It is a system rigged against voters. It's a system rigged against people that go to voting booths. It's a system rigged against people that go out to caucuses. It is a system that is rigged in favor of the rich and the powerful and the politically connected. Bernie Sanders wins by 12 percentage points. He loses Wyoming,
He's losing
where
the election.
it counts by
Primary.
4 delegates.
Some stunning news from Iowa. New CNN poll numbers show Hillary Clinton has gone from a lock to win the Hawkeye state to possibly destined to wake up in 12 days having suffered another crushing loss.
This is a clear sign of voter fraud. Suddenly delegates are missing. They can't account for certain delegates that were there for Bernie who suddenly vanished.
Saying they need to actually count every individual body, not just every individual.
And they did not do that.
I'm telling you how that works. If you want to challenge it, then challenge it. If you have to wait.
And all this guy's trying to say is you can challenge it later.
All right.
And they brushed them off.
Apparently down there in Precinct 70, they were trying to break a 61-61 split at the caucus, and Univision reporting that they did a coin toss. Apparently caucus rules allow for a coin to be flipped to decide the voter in case of a tie like this.
This is 2016 in America, how we're deciding
Coin toss, see?
election.
It could have been worse. It could have been a shootout.
That's true, Beck.
This is something the Iowa Democratic Party was saying. It's an arcane procedural thing. It never happens. Don't worry about it. Now it's happened 3 times, and it is literally affecting the outcome.
Oh, this is astonishing.
Was it heads or was it tails?
The coin flip controversy. So it turns out the Iowa caucuses are so crazy that if they're too close to call in certain precincts, they flip a coin. They had it happen 6 times just last night, just in the Democratic side.
Hillary Clinton winning by 4 delegates, 6 of them won by a coin toss. And she won all 6 coin tosses. So you have people not only pointing out that that seems statistically impossible, but also just, I think, surprised that a caucus and an election so important as Iowa would come down to flipping a coin.
6 for 6. Wow, that's surprising. She won all 6 coin tosses.
Odds against winning 6 out of 6 coin flips are 64-1, or 1.56%. Are you kidding me? Everyone who isn't getting paid by Hillary knows it was a devastating loss to her campaign. But no one would expect her to defy 64-1 odds and win 6 coin tosses in a row. She should go to Vegas. She should buy some lottery tickets. It is a total fraud. I don't know if it was sleight of hand. I don't know if it was a loaded coin. But it is 100% BS.
Now, also, oddly enough, after sharing a story about the coin flips after Iowa, because we all know Hillary Clinton won every single coin flip, which is statistically very improbable, well, her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, expressed excitement at the fact that Nevada also has coin tosses. He said, haha, yes, the exciting news. They have coin flips in Nevada too. And that warranted not 1, but 2 exclamation points.
The Fox Decision Desk calling the Democratic side of this race too close to call tonight.
It looks like we are in a virtual tie.
Wow, what a night, an unbelievable night.
Hillary declared a narrow victory.
As I stand here tonight, breathing a big sigh of relief, thank you, Iowa.
Hillary Clinton went on the stand last night in front of all of her supporters and declared victory. And then it wasn't announced until today in the early afternoon that it was 0.2%. I mean, what information did she have, or was that just a lucky flip of the coin again?
Clinton did 12% better than the pre-election polls, and the Republican primary didn't show any deviation from the pre-election polls. Green means the vote matched the pre-election polling. Red means it was way off in favor of Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton did way better than the pre-election polling only in states that have unaccountable electronic voting machines owned by corporations that donate heavily to the Clinton Foundation.
The touchscreen voting machines without paper trails are banned in Europe and most of the world because they are considered such garbage, so easily hacked that the results aren't trusted. Why would we take any election results off machines like that and consider them valid?
In this Stanford study, they present other proof that the primary election was rigged in certain states. But still, the mainstream media refuses to talk about this.
This is disgusting. This is betrayal at a level that you would typically associate with a developing country, not the United States.
Bernie Sanders opening up a shocking, commanding 27-point lead over Clinton.
I am here to break it to you tonight that despite all the headlines you have seen proclaiming not just that Bernie Sanders won in New Hampshire last night, but that Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton by a truly historic margin in New Hampshire, despite that news, technically, it was a tie.
Hillary Clinton lost to Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire by 22 percentage points, the biggest victory in a contested Democratic primary there since John F. Kennedy. But it looks as though Clinton and Sanders are leaving the granite state with the same number of delegates in their pockets because Clinton has the support of New Hampshire's superdelegates, these party insiders.
Now, they also question what is wrong with the people of New Hampshire since they voted overwhelmingly in favor of Bernie Sanders. Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with them. Nothing. They were actually rational and supported a candidate that was looking out for their best interests.
What I believe is that this country can guarantee health care to all people as a right, can have paid family and medical leave, can make public colleges and universities tuition-free, can lead the world in transforming our energy system and combating climate change, can break up the large financial institutions, can demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes.
Also, DNC operatives tried to create media narratives to sabotage Bernie's campaign, saying that his campaign was in shambles or that he was an atheist.
The chief financial officer of the DNC, Brad Marshall, sent an email to 3 other DNC staffers suggesting that the party should try to get someone to ask you about your religious beliefs. Here's the email. Quote, "It might make no difference, but for Kentucky and West Virginia, can we get someone to ask his belief? Does he believe in a God? He had skated on saying he has a Jewish heritage. I think I read he is an atheist. This could make several points difference with my peeps. My southern peeps would draw a big difference between a Jew and an atheist," unquote. Senator Sanders, that is the chief financial officer of the Democratic National Committee.
They're going, hit him for being Jewish, hit him for being an atheist. I mean, they're almost David Duke supporters.
All right, let's take a look at some of the statistics, the hypothetical matchups. If you put Sanders up against Trump, it looks like, according to this, he can beat Trump 51.8% against Trump's 38.8%. But then let's look at Hillary Clinton against Trump, and it's 47% to Trump's 41%. So at what point, Larry, does the DNC say it's time to start paying attention to Bernie Sanders?
Well, they're not going to say that. I think they're pretty stacked in favor of Hillary Clinton and have been all along.
There's Hillary Clinton's rally, and she can't fill a gymnasium. She speaks to half-empty, near-empty rooms all over the country. And I want to show you another picture that demonstrates this. And this is a rally of Bernie Sanders. That's not Hillary Clinton right there. And he had, he packed auditorium, packed, overflowing, people waiting outside. And here's Hillary Clinton's rally in New York. There it is, the front runner who can't fill a room.
Bernie Sanders has won 21 states and lost 3 by less than 1 percentage point.
As he's had to fight the narrative that he should get out and that Hillary Clinton is going to be the presumptive Democratic nominee, I think this, at the end of the day, is what keeps them in this.
Few rallies like this in modern American politics.
I'm the head of a national party. I have to get our candidate, our party ready to launch our nominee from Philadelphia, whoever that is, because that person is going to be the 45th president of the United States.
In emails released by Wikileaks, you admitted that Bernie's campaign was good at deflecting criticism and that you, quote, can't let them get away with this. Let's not also forget about the conflict of interest. You were Hillary Clinton's campaign chair in 2008. Not to mention the fact that you worked with Hillary Clinton's campaign to move red states up on the primary schedule to advantage Hillary Clinton, seeing that she would presumably be the most conservative candidate, thus giving her the edge in red states and conservative states. If that's not rigging, or at least disadvantaging Bernie Sanders, then I don't know what is. Now, it's not just Bernie Sanders. You did this to everyone that would potentially challenge Hillary Clinton. You also tried to delegitimize Bernie Sanders supporters by lying about their behavior and by claiming that chairs were thrown during the Nevada Democratic Convention.
Now, for 3 days straight, we've been hearing on television, the violence at the Nevada Democratic Convention from Sanders supporters.
The events that unfolded at the state convention in Nevada over the weekend continues to be fodder for those who think Sanders should end his campaign.
That the tactics employed by Bernie Sanders supporters by shouting, heckling, screaming, and in some cases, some reports of, as you mentioned, throwing of chairs has caused a lot of fears among the party leadership. California Democrat Dianne Feinstein even said that she thinks that Bernie Sanders should drop out.
CNN just can't get enough of the Nevada convention chaos storyline. It's today's missing airplane. They just can't cover it enough.
The night ended in that hotel ballroom with reports of chairs being thrown at the front of the stage. Law enforcement came in, shut the whole thing down.
It's so easy for the Clinton campaign to throw a meme out there, a talking point, and have all the news unquestioningly followed. Oh yeah, no, the violence happened. Oh, the chair, they threw chairs.
Have they figured out who the sort of the ground zero or patient one of the lie about chairs being thrown in Nevada? Who that came from?
There was no violence at that convention. There was a lot of raucousness. There was yelling. I've been in politics a long time, and I've been at union meetings that were a lot more raucous.
But then a bunch of the Sanders crowd apparently didn't show up.
And they also did cross-program the convention on the graduation day from UNLV and a lot of other colleges. so that the millennials aren't here. If you notice, it's not there's not a lot of young people here. Why? Because they're all graduating.
And then several others missed a registration deadline for being registered Democrats.
There was, I believe the number is 64 delegates who were not able to be seated on the Sanders side, 8 delegates who were not able to be seated on the Clinton side.
1,695 delegates for Hillary Clinton. 1,662 delegates for Sanders. Madam Chair, I have a minority report which I wish to give, and I've just been told that it can't be given. If you're interested in it, send me.
Over several minutes of the convention goers yelling, "Let her speak." She gets her chance when a speaker defers to her to read her report.
Contrary to the procedures and precedents set by the committee, nearly none of these 64 people were presented with the opportunity to be heard by the committee or to demonstrate that they are registered Democrats.
What's the worst thing that happened on Saturday that really voters should know about around the country and care about?
Well, I mean, the way the convention started, I think if you watch the video online, you can see it.
It has been moved and seconded that passed by the body. All those in favor say aye.
When they tried to pass temporary rules to shut off debate in the event, they were asked for the yeas and nays. You know, a voice vote. People in the room pretty clearly said that the nays won it.
All those opposed say no.
The yeas and the nays. The yeas are mild, the nays are tremendous, and they go, yes, the yeas have it. The vote was, should we have voice votes? They have the most epic debacle on a voice vote I have ever heard. And she's like, yeah, the ayes have it. We should do more voice votes.
The noes had it, and primarily most of the noes were Senator Sanders supporters. But the chairwoman gave it to the yeses, and then she said there will be no further debate on this issue, just gavel people down.
Show me one video there where it showed chairs being thrown. Bernie and everybody else, show me where the chairs are actually being thrown.
There were teachers there, there were nurses there, there were blue-collar workers there. There were just people there who thought that the process was unfair, and they were voicing their opinions about that, but nobody tried to storm the stage or anything like that.
Officer, we got people throwing chairs over here. Officer.
And when they had the opportunity to apologize, when they sent out a statement, instead of apologizing for what happened and how their campaign and their people behaved, they attacked the state party.
Well, first of all, let me just reiterate again that the Democratic National Committee is neutral when it comes to this primary. That having been said, the reports that I heard from this weekend's Nevada Democratic Convention were seriously disturbing.
This whole narrative of Bernie Sanders being dangerous and angry didn't just start now. They have been building this narrative for months. A Huffington Post article from February 4th of 2016. Barbara Boxer was being interviewed, and here's what she had to say. Bernie evidences a tremendous amount of emotional anger.
The clip that I have of Barbara Boxer is her saying, Hillary's going to win. We've got this.
I'm for Hillary Clinton, but she's for all of us. So keep on booing and boo yourselves out of this election.
Barbara Boxer has a political bias. She is supportive of Hillary Clinton.
I expect Bernie to get a hold of this whole situation. That's what I expect from a leader.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders should go down to Nevada in the middle of a campaign and check out who those 50 to 100 people are. By the way, he should also check out to see if they're really Bernie Sanders supporters, given that Hillary Clinton's campaign brags about how they pay people online to cause trouble for Bernie Sanders.
People who have gone online to defend Hillary and explain why they supported her have been subject to attacks that are literally too profane, often, not to mention sexist, to repeat.
Sanders disavowing such tactics.
That anybody who is supporting me is doing sexist things we don't want them. I don't want them. That is not what this campaign is about.
But we've now got a grandmother who is worried about her 5-year-old grandchild. We've got a woman who says her marriage might be on the brink because of Bernie Sanders supporters. We have a U.S. senator who just said on live national television that she feared for her life at a Democratic convention.
The emails catalog the contempt senior DNC officials held for Bernie Sanders.
These are DNC emails from Democratic Party leaders who seemingly conspired to promote the Clinton campaign at the expense of Senator Bernie Sanders.
Waserman Schultz derided Sanders campaign manager Jeff Weaver as alternately a damn liar, scummy, and an ass.
I think I will do the best job of making sure we don't let a Donald Trump or a Ted Cruz become the next president of the United States.
So many polls show Bernie Sanders doing better against Donald Trump than you.
I don't pay attention to the polls.
According to the latest national poll, America is now closer to a Trump presidency than it has ever been. After the Clinton campaign squeaked out a 1-point victory in Kentucky last night, then lost to Bernie Sanders by 12 points in Oregon, the Clinton campaign is staring at a shocking new national poll tonight that shows Donald Trump ahead of Hillary Clinton.
Why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask?
I think at the end of the day, she does have a problem as a presidential candidate, which is the more that people see her, the more they don't like her.
I think Hillary Clinton's speech on Saturday was emblematic of where the Democratic Party is right now.
It was a record-breaking weekend for Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. More than 20,000 people have turned out to see Sanders speak at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center on Saturday.
He has enormous crowds. He has enormous support. The demographic skews very young, which is really what you're looking for to get people actively involved in politics.
He does have Democratic support and support amongst independents and even amongst Republicans.
The Boston Globe reports it's the largest rally for a presidential primary candidate in recent Massachusetts history, topping the 10,000 that Barack Obama drew to the Boston Common back in 2008. He doubled it.
Bernie Sanders?
It would be much tougher than
you think would be a better candidate than Hillary?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
because he would excite the base.
The American middle class, working class. Hillary doesn't. She's like the elected Republican. She cares about the Chamber of Commerce.
This is not to suggest that Bernie Sanders was the perfect person to be president of the United States. However, he was clearly the people's choice, with a rare level of integrity, who was not bought and paid for by the same companies that have corrupted our country and are in process of destroying our world. Greed-based companies that consider SKD Knickerbocker as their protector and friend.
We're taking on not only Wall Street and the economic establishment, we're taking on the political establishment.
I think people will have a fling with Bernie. Bernie's like a great fun date because you know he's not going to be around town too long, and I think you're going to see people flirt with that.
Oh, these little kids who like Bernie Sanders, go ahead and have your fling. No, the adults are with Hillary Clinton. We know better. She's winning.
With me now, Carl Bernstein, the renowned former Washington Post reporter who helped crack Watergate.
There is a huge story going on. I've spent part of this weekend talking to people in the White House. They are horrified at how Hillary Clinton is blowing up her own campaign.
It's the culmination of 16 months of public scrutiny from Clinton's decision while she was Secretary of State to exclusively use a private email server for her government and personal emails rather than the State Department's email system. system. First revealed in March of 2015, there have been questions ever since.
Clinton even tried to laugh off a question about whether she had wiped her private server.
Turned it over. What, like with a cloth or something? Well, no.
Do you think that there was criminal intent or gross negligence?
Well,
in this case?
Here's how I've analyzed it. I asked myself at the beginning of this, what would I do if I were the U.S. attorney investigating this case? And here's what you do. The first thing you do is you look at what General Hayden, the former director of NSA and the CIA, has called the original sin. What was the original sin? It was setting up a private server in a private residence in New York upon which all of the secretary's government business would be conducted. She would have no .gov account. She would only have the account in the private server in Chappaqua. When you look at that and you see why would someone do that, the question I ask myself as an investigator, the answer I get is to avoid disclosure, to evade, to prevent people from finding out what's there.
President Obama speaking out on 60 Minutes about Hillary Clinton's email controversy.
Did you know about Hillary Clinton's use of private email server?
No.
While she was Secretary of State?
No.
Saying while it's been, in his words, ginned up for political gain, his former Secretary of State should have held herself to a higher standard.
It is important for her to answer these questions to the satisfaction of the American public, and they can make their own judgment.
Obama wants her to win, but Sanders has shown how vulnerable she is. These ethical lapses have tied the White House up in knots. They don't know what to do. They're beside themselves. And now you've got a situation with these transcripts, a little bit like Richard Nixon and his tapes.
Look, I made speeches to lots of groups. I told them what I thought. I answered questions.
But did you have to be paid $675,000?
Well, I don't know. That's what they offered. So,
if she stonewalls on it and does not release them, it enables the Republicans to paint her again into a corner. This is not just a vast right-wing conspiracy that is causing her problems. She has caused herself these problems. The server is not the vast right-wing conspiracy. It's Hillary Clinton deciding that she could put a server in her closet. The same with these transcripts. The same with accepting this money in a presidential year when she knew that she was going to probably be running for president. To the people in the White House that I talked to, it is unfathomable that she did this and has endangered President Obama's legacy. As I say, they are terrified at this point, and they want Bernie Sanders to not do well on Tuesday and Hillary to do well.
Today, WikiLeaks released new hacked emails from Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. And in that batch, an email from May of 2015. Clinton campaign spokesman Brian Fallon said that DOJ folks had informed him about an upcoming status conference in one of the lawsuits regarding Clinton's private email setup. That means the Department of Justice was, in fact, updating the Clinton campaign on the investigation. Plus, you have Bill Clinton meeting with Loretta Lynch 2 days before the FBI director announced the charges would not be filed.
This morning, there are questions about what could have been discussed during a private meeting between former President Bill Clinton
Mike's laughing. I mean, you can't make this up.
And Attorney General Loretta Lynch yesterday?
You can't make this up.
No.
Former President Bill Clinton was in town and met up with U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch as she was arriving in Phoenix. Now, this meeting took place just hours before the release of the Benghazi report, so we asked her about it.
I did see President Clinton at the Phoenix airport as I was leaving, and he spoke to myself and my husband on the plane. Our conversation was a great deal about his grandchildren. It was primarily social and about our travels.
We're told the private meeting on board her plane lasted about a half hour.
I don't understand how it could possibly be that no one traveling with either the Attorney General or the former president wouldn't have said, this is a bad idea.
You can't have private server. You can't do that.
Yeah,
it's not allowed.
The person about to become the Democratic nominee for President of the United States was interrogated by the FBI today as part of an ongoing year-long federal criminal investigation. This within days of the target's husband, Bill Clinton, meeting privately on board a parked private jet with the Attorney General of the United States, who has his wife's future in her hands, deciding whether that wife should be indicted for engaging in criminal activity.
This is so obvious, right? I mean, and they didn't talk about it?
I bet you they didn't talk about it.
Come on, stop. Everybody stop. Okay, well, this is why this is never going to be a problem for Hillary Clinton. People are too afraid to talk about the truth and the fact that this was wrong from the get-go. And it wasn't allowed, as she says. It just wasn't.
I agree with that, and I agree she shouldn't have gotten on the plane, but, I mean...
Coming up, we'll just move on, just like everyone else does, even though it's a complete sham.
The meeting on the tarmac with former President Clinton, that was a pretty fortuitous meeting for you, wasn't it?
I would not say that.
Well, it gave you a perfect alibi, because if you had recused yourself, as some have suggested at the outset of this investigation, because you're friends with the Clintons and maybe hope to be Attorney General in her administration, then you could stand here and say, I defer to the FBI director. But you didn't recuse yourself, but now you're using the meeting on the tarmac to basically say, to avoid the appearance of impropriety, I can't answer your question. Isn't that basically what's happened here today?
Congressman, I would not say it was fortuitous for me or for anyone. It led me to take, again, another unusual step in this case.
But that's what's happened today. In fact, I knew you weren't going to answer our questions today, and I apologize for wasting so much time here, because it's really not been very productive. And I asked my staff to count the number of times today you would say, I can't answer that question, or refuse to give an appropriate response. It's happened 74 times so far. So really, it's either one of two things. Either you're saying that because you want to avoid the appearance of impropriety, in which case you should have recused yourself, or you're trying to protect Hillary Clinton.
Your policies on issues like gay rights and reproductive choice are very consistent. They should be very attractive to progressive groups. But there's been a series of high-profile endorsements. Groups like Planned Parenthood and NARAL, they've gone out of their way to make very early endorsements for Secretary Clinton.
And I was proud to be endorsed by the Planned Parenthood Action Fund because of the work I've done for so many years to defend women's health.
You know, it was clear that Hillary Clinton had found a way to potentially drive a wedge between Bernie Sanders and some of these very passionate liberal-based voters.
You can have an organization that takes care of women's health without having the #1 abortion provider who speaks so callously over lunch about the harvesting of unborn children.
Discussing selling parts of human fetuses.
Yeah, livers.
Some people want lower extremities too, which that's simple. I mean, that's easy.
We've all heard a lot about Planned Parenthood recently, especially since Hillary Rosen became their PR strategist to cover up their negative press and generate more donations.
It's only going to get worse for Planned Parenthood. I agree with Hillary Clinton. There are troubling things on those tapes.
SKDK's specialty is to keep people and corporations relatively unscathed, even after egregious misdeeds and mistakes.
I'm obviously not only against defunding Planned Parenthood, but I would like to see Planned Parenthood even get more funding.
No one should be surprised by this particular endorsement. Just like the majority of Hillary Clinton's endorsements, probably all of them, they are driven not by people support from the bottom or union members or supporters of these organizations. They are driven by quid pro quo political insider connections from the top.
You know, if there is a way to structure some kind of constitutional restrictions that take into account the life of the mother and her health, then I'm open to that.
Now, it doesn't matter that Bernie Sanders has actually a better voting record on women's issues.
I think the tone of that discussion was unfortunate. But if the question is, do I support Planned Parenthood? I absolutely do.
The Planned Parenthood action page literally has thousands, I would say, of angry comments for this endorsement.
It seems near unanimous when you go on their page. You can see a couple of Hillary supporters here and there, but I mean overwhelmingly, they wanted them to endorse Bernie Sanders. Cecile Richards, the actual president of Planned Parenthood, has an arguable conflict of interest. I mean, her daughter, Lily Adams, is the communications director for Hillary's campaign in Iowa.
This year isn't just about electing the first woman president. It's about electing this woman president.
Now, second of all, Bernie Sanders' universal health care plan actually existentially threatens Planned Parenthood.
Women come to us for the vast majority of care. They come to us for breast cancer screenings, cervical cancer screenings, birth control. 1 in 5 women in the country have been to Planned Parenthood for health care. I myself went there for birth control. Half of our health centers are in medically underserved communities in America where women come for their basic well-woman visits. And that's actually what's at stake. This entire effort is a complete political smear campaign in order to cut off funding for basic health care for women in America.
The reason why Planned Parenthood is so vital is because a lot of women in low-income areas and who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, they don't have money to see a typical healthcare provider, but they can go to Planned Parenthood and get services for really affordable, really cheap quality services. But if all women have access to universal health care, well, they may not need Planned Parenthood after all. So what would Planned Parenthood become? I mean, they would kind of devolve into a de facto abortion organization. Well, they'd lose money because they wouldn't be offering other services as much to women. And most of all, most importantly, well, they would probably lose favor among the public.
The New York Times recently began posting the celebrations of gay unions. Not just straight people getting married, but gay people who want to announce their unions. Do you think New York State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay.
The largest lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights organization in the country, the Human Rights Campaign, has made their endorsement for president in 2016. That person is Hillary Clinton. I am not kidding.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
I've always believed that marriage should be left to the states because that's where it's always been.
Now, this endorsement comes as quite the surprise because when you look at the voting records and how the HRC rated both candidates, Bernie Sanders has always maintained a 100% pro-gay voting record from the Human Rights Campaign.
You said something about homos in the military. Was the gentleman referring to the many thousands and thousands of gay people who have put their lives on the line in countless wars defending this country? Was that the group of people that the gentleman was referring to?
In a lot of ways, DOMA was a line that was drawn that was to prevent going further.
Hillary Rosen, who you know.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Hillary Rosen. I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm proud to be associated with the Human Rights Campaign Fund.
And she's a supporter of Secretary Clinton. She said, Bernie Sanders is right. Note to my friends Bill and Hillary, please stop saying DOMA was to prevent something worse. It wasn't. I was there. End of quote.
I think you're trying to say that, you know, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong.
Clinton was reluctant to adopt one of Gore's biggest goals, stopping the Keystone Pipeline.
Clinton first signaling support.
We've not yet signed off on it, but we are inclined to do so.
But in 2015, with Sanders rising in the polls, Clinton aides exchanged a flurry of emails about how to change her position on the pipeline without it looking manufactured and very political. Weeks later, responding to a voter question, she switched her position.
Therefore, I oppose it.
It does sound like this is a politician who uses politics, who works the system. She says one thing to one group, she says another to a different group.
They were also getting pissed at Move On after they endorsed Bernie Sanders and wanted to rein them in somehow. So one email said, this is more than a little annoying. Making noise is one thing, spending 7 figures is another. She voted for the war. You punished her already. Get over it. I don't know who funds them, but don't we have Hollywood friends with ties to Move On who can tell them to cool it?
It has been a tumultuous 24 hours here at the opening of the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. On Monday morning, protesters booed and heckled Waserman Schultz at a Florida delegation breakfast.
She's been in the tank for Hillary from the get-go, and it's been quite obvious.
Yeah, she's been in the tank for Hillary, and I think what's surprising is that this talk that she needs to step down isn't coming from Sanders supporters, it's coming from very staunch pro-Hillary supporters. They see her as a drag on Hillary. because the problem that Hillary has, in their view, is that there's an enthusiasm gap. Democrats, and especially young voters who are an important constituency, aren't very enthusiastic about Clinton. Well, Debbie Waserman Schultz has become the face of the rigged system, as Bernie Sanders sees it, and they think it's going to be tough for these younger voters to embrace Hillary, while Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the face of the party.
There's an open DOJ and FBI investigation into Mrs. Clinton right now.
Right. Let's not be melodramatic.
How is that melodramatic? Those are the facts.
In terms of the status of the FBI investigation into your private email server, have you been interviewed by the FBI yet?
No.
You haven't. All right, Secretary Clinton, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time. Good luck at the debate tonight.
I think we need someone that has the best in ethical standards as our next president. That's how I feel.
Secretary Clinton, do you want to respond?
No.
The DNC has been scrupulously objective and stayed out of this for a long time. This trashing of the DNC leadership is absolutely ridiculous and unacceptable. Just because Bernie Sanders is losing, all he's doing is whining about the process.
We are in good shape. We're on track. And I will tell you that I'm quite confident about where we are in our campaign, preparing to elect our nominee. It's the Republicans that really have a mess on their hands. So I can see there's a little bit of interest in my being here, and I appreciate that interest.
Tonight, this scandal has cost the chair of the party her job, just one day before she was set to gavel this convention into order.
When Hillary Rosen's co-conspirator, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was forced to resign as DNC head due to her revealed corruptions, Hillary Clinton brazenly made Schultz the honorary chair of her national campaign.
Let me read you a little bit of the official Clinton campaign statement, which says, quote, "There's simply no one better at taking the fight to Republicans than Debbie, which is why I am glad that she has agreed to serve as honorary chair of my campaign's 50-state program to gain ground and elect Democrats in every part of the country, and will continue to serve as a surrogate for my campaign nationally in Florida and in other key states."
Well, very interesting decision, though, by the Clinton campaign to essentially employ her, because then that is only going to make some Sanders people go, aha, this is her, she owes Debbie something, and that's why it's an interesting decision. It may only feed some conspiracy theories anyway.
When one corrupt SKDK shill was pushed out of her position as DNC head just before the Democratic convention, SKDK shill Donna Brazile got the slot.
As your incoming chair of the Democratic National Committee, I promise you, my friends, I commit to all Americans that we will have a party that you can be proud of. We will elect Democrats up and down the ballot, and we will celebrate together the inauguration of President Hillary Clinton in January 2017. God bless you and God bless America.
Not only was Bernie Sanders snubbed, not only did it look like Hillary Clinton had bought or muscled her way into it, then those supporters were denied a chance to speak at the convention, and that was the final straw.
So WikiLeaks emails continue to show some very ugly sides of campaigning, and among those who look bad, much of the media, who appear to be colluding with the campaigns. Today we look at whether or not a CNN contributor, who is now the head of the Democratic National Committee, secretly forwarded a town hall question to Hillary Clinton's campaign before the town hall. So far, Donna Brazile has insisted that she absolutely did not, but now new evidence shows that she did.
You were accused of receiving a debate question before a CNN town hall where they partnered with TV1, and that you had this question on March 12th, that verbatim was provided by Roland Martin to CNN the next day. How did you get that question, Donna?
Well, Kelly, since I play straight up, and I'll play straight up with you, I did not receive any questions from CNN. Let's just be
Where'd
very
you get it?
clear.
Where did you get it?
First of all, what information are you providing to me that will allow me to see what you're talking about? Everybody
got the WikiLeaks released a March 12th Podesta email showing you messaging the Clinton campaign with the exact wording of a question asked at the March 13th CNN TV1 town hall debate. Where did you get it?
You know, as a Christian woman, I understand persecution, but I will not sit here and be persecuted because your information is totally false.
The email in question, it was written by Donna Brazile, who at the time was the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, as well as a contributor to ABC News and CNN. Now, the email subject line reads, "From time to time, I get questions in advance." Well, then, the following day at a CNN town hall between Clinton and Bernie Sanders, that question came up. So how did Donna Brazile, who wasn't even a moderator at that debate, get a hold of the question and send the exact wording for the question? Brazile says she didn't.
As far as I know, that CNN has never provided me with questions, absolutely ever, nada.
Well, when you said from time to time I get the questions in advance, what were you referring to? Because in that email you offered the exact question that one of the moderators, Roland Martin, then proposed the next day.
What you're telling the American
Podesta's
people,
email.
Well, Podesta's emails were stolen. You're so interested in talking about stolen
So you
material.
deny it.
You're like a thief that want to bring into the night the things that you found that was in the gutter. I'm not. Let me just tell you what I said from day
CNN's
one.
Jake Tapper came out and said this was unethical. Somebody was unethically helping the Clinton campaign. He said, "I love Donna Brazile, but this is very upsetting and very troubling." That's your own colleague at CNN. It's not Megyn Kelly. Who gave you that question?
Hey, Megan, once again, I've said it, and I've said it on the record, and I'll say it on the record, and I'll keep saying it on the record. I am not going to try to validate falsified information.
For Brazile to share a question with the campaign, it breaches every journalistic rule that there is. It also destroys those claims that she was a neutral party.
Do you owe the voters an apology for passing a question for a town hall off to the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Sir, you know what? I wish when you got your facts, you read the emails. And
I did read a lot of them.
Well, you clearly did not read my email, sir.
How many more emails were there? She asked in the middle. You haven't read all my emails. Well, that's true. The ones we've read are pretty bad. I suspect that if we read them all, it might be worse because there are references to how you will send even more questions.
The Democratic National Committee, as Secretary Clinton alluded to tonight, was a victim of a cybercrime.
You keep saying that, but the email was that you passed it along.
Private emails were stolen from individuals that had no right being trafficked in the public sphere.
We've heard this, but what about you passing a question to Hillary Clinton's campaign, the town hall before?
Trump badger women, you're welcome.
Yes, a journalist asking a question is badgering you.
Yeah.
When he's asking a question, a legitimate question, and she says, "Hey, stop badgering women. Why are you badgering women? Stop badgering me." No, it's not badgering. It's actually called doing your job. It's called being a journalist.
We have ample evidence. We've been the victim of a cybercrime. We have ample evidence. We have ample evidence through our servers and through all of the technology that we have seen corrupted by the fingerprints used by Russian hackers.
We have ample evidence. We have ample evidence. Ample evidence. Really, where's your evidence? Oh, we've got ample evidence. We're just not going to show you.
Normally, what happens is the journalist asks a question, she pivots to Russia, and nobody challenges her.
Getting angry at reporters by getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar, well, look, that's not a good response. It makes you look bad. It makes the DNC look even worse than it already does at this point.
When you see something postmarked from Russia, you should be afraid to open up the document.
These are legit, aren't they?
I don't know. I refuse to open these documents. I refuse to allow a foreign government, foreign companies to interfere and meddle and manipulate information.
Did Russia leak the documents, either the DNC documents or the John Podesta emails, to WikiLeaks?
We have said quite clearly that our source is not a member of any state, including the Russian government.
Millions of Bernie Sanders donors may have legal recourse against the DNC for running a campaign that they view as rigged.
You can pretty well predict electoral outcomes simply by campaign funding alone. Here comes Sanders, no support from the wealthy, no support from corporations, the media ignored or disparaged. He would have won the Democratic Party nomination if it hadn't been for the shenanigans of the Obama-Clinton party managers who kept him out, might have been president.
If you insist that the nomination process
is fair, but it actually wasn't fair, then that's fraud. So anyone who donated to Bernie Sanders was in fact defrauded by the DNC.
It's more about than getting your $8 back. It's about getting transparency, correct?
Right, that's it. It's not really an economic lawsuit. It's about accountability, transparency, even-handedness.
The DNC attorneys get a bit creative in their effort to get this lawsuit thrown out. They claim that all of the named plaintiffs already knew the DNC was biased when they donated, so therefore how could they have been duped if they knew? Are these people insane? Is the DNC full of insane, corrupt, maniacal cheaters? I don't even know what else to say.
Another man connected to the DNC is found dead less than a month after the murder of DNC staffer Seth Conrad Rich.
It was a celebratory day for Sean Lucas when he entered the DNC building last month and told a committee official, "You've been served." Lucas worked as a process server for the class action DNC lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed against both the committee and former DNC chairwoman Debbie Waserman Schultz for allegedly committing acts of fraud after leaked emails revealed the DNC showed favoritism towards Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. After serving the papers, Lucas told an independent filmmaker who captured the whole thing on video that although Schultz refused to meet with him, democracy was served.
Yeah, they wouldn't give us any of the head honchos, which I kind of had a feeling wasn't going to happen. But we did make contact with somebody from the Democratic National Committee's office, and they've been served. Democracy has prevailed today.
But in a bizarre twist of events, on August 2nd, less than 1 month after serving the subpoena, Lucas was reported dead. Police are not releasing the cause of death at this time and are not commenting on speculation that Lucas was murdered. His unusual and sudden death is fueling speculation about the recent death of Seth Conrad Rich. Rich, a DNC employee, was working on several committee cases involving voter and election fraud before he was murdered by gunshots.
I reached out to the police department way back in March when the family first hired me, right, to get involved. The police department did not call me back because someone, a high-ranking official at the DNC, check this out, a high-ranking official at the DNC, when I called the police department, they got that information and called the Rich family wanting to know why was I snooping around.
He was also set to testify in the FBI's email investigation of Hillary Clinton before he was killed. Authorities have ruled his death as a robbery gone wrong, but police records indicate nothing was stolen from Rich, even though he had a cell phone, cash, and a watch on him at the time of the incident.
There were some problems that Seth was having on his job at the DNC right before he was killed, and the person, listen to this, the person that called the father after I called the police to get information, that's the person that Seth was having problems with at the DNC.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks. They become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States. You know, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
Now, the latest WikiLeaks release contains an email from Clinton's campaign chief, John Podesta. Podesta's email confirms that Assange was indeed correct to believe that Hillary ordered Rich's murder, if for no other reason than to make an example of him in order to deter future leakers.
I rise to honor the memory of an extraordinary young man who worked in dedicated service at the Democratic National Committee, Seth Conrad Rich. Seth was just 27 years old when he was killed this past weekend in our nation's capital, the victim of an unknown shooter. He was a dedicated, selfless public servant protecting one of our most essential freedoms, the right of all Americans to vote.
The Hillary Clinton documents released today by Wikileaks make more clear than ever just how much is at stake in this election. So much corruption.
So much came out of this, and so little of it is being discussed in the mainstream media that it's honestly just, it's troubling. It's very troubling to me. It's disgusting, honestly.
Is it ethical to report on stolen information?
Not only is it ethical, it would be incredibly unethical if journalists ignored it. Many of the most important stories in the history of American journalism come from stolen materials, whether it be the Pentagon Papers, whether it be the Manning and Snowden files, whether it be sources that take classified information and give it to Donna Priest at the Washington Post so she can uncover CIA black sites, or the Bush warrantless eavesdropping program. So many of these acts that lead to the best journalism are grounded in illegality. No journalist has the right to say, I'm only going to report on information as long as the source is morally upstanding. No real journalist would think that way.
Well, here's what we know. What the WikiLeaks dump makes clear is how the sausage is made in politics. And I think it's interesting just on that level. Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
A CNN host just recently stated that it's illegal to read WikiLeaks or download WikiLeaks, that you would be engaging in criminal activity by doing so, and that you should only learn about WikiLeaks through CNN and through the unbiased cable news. If that's not the most Orwellian thing I've ever heard in my life.
There's a new development involving Donna Brazile that came out of the WikiLeaks information.
New emails today saying, wait a second, not just a town hall meeting, but a CNN debate in Flint, Michigan. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Donna Brazile sends a note to John Podesta saying, quote, one of the questions directed to HRC tomorrow is from a woman with a rash. Her family has lead poison, and she will ask what, if anything, will Hillary do as president to help the people of Flint. The opposite of what we heard from Donna Brazile to Megyn Kelly. So today, a statement from CNN. On October 14th, CNN accepted Donna Brazile's resignation as a CNN contributor. CNN never gave Brazile access to any questions, prep material, attendee lists, background information, or meetings in advance of a town hall or debate. We are completely uncomfortable with what we have learned about her interactions with the Clinton campaign while she was a CNN contributor.
CNN President Jeff Zucker reportedly described Brazile's interactions as unethical and disgusting during an editorial meeting today.
Interesting the time frame there. She is now the interim chair of the Democratic National Committee, Donna Brazile, and CNN is saying on October 14th, they accepted her resignation. Nobody ever announced that. Right. But now that these new emails are out today, CNN's getting it out there.
Yeah.
Look, those of us who've known Donna a long time know that she is a person of integrity and a person of high character. She's a true professional who is a tenacious and effective advocate for Democrats.
Donna Brazile finally coming clean, admitting that she gave questions to the Clinton campaign while working for CNN.
I saw some of the WikiLeaks, I saw some of the hacking, and I know that it was illegal, but I happened to come across an email where you were giving Hillary Clinton the answers to a town hall or a debate.
No, not the answers. Come on.
The questions.
Yeah, please,
the questions.
Please.
Okay.
I get enough trouble. And you know, this is the season of Lent. You know, I can do some confession here.
Donna.
You really want to be, bless me, Father, I've sinned. I promise not to do it again.
They thought they could really do whatever they wanted because they expected Hillary to win. When she didn't, suddenly the real world, for all of us, re-enters this picture. No longer is it going to be their bubble. Now they've got to face reality.
Did you used to be a Democrat?
I did. Up until Hillary.
I'm here for Donald Trump because I can't vote for Hillary. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm a committee chairperson in my neighborhood, but I cannot vote for Hillary Clinton.
And I couldn't vote for Hillary for anything.
So you were a Bernie supporter then?
Yeah, very, very hardcore Bernie supporter, yep.
And so now you're coming out to support Trump?
Yeah, of course. Trump, we can't go for crooked Clinton. We can't go for her.
Trump!
Yes, go Trump.
Many Americans see Washington today as a polarized, dysfunctional city, one that is not sufficiently bipartisan. But you describe it as a place that becomes a determinedly bipartisan team when there is money to be made.
I literally went to post that I thought that the Trump campaign's Facebook Live daily show was a brilliant idea. And I kind of went back and forth. Oh, should I not compliment him? Is that a bad thing to do? Like, will people think then that I think that Hillary should do a Facebook Live? And I just thought, oh my God, you're so fucking overthinking this.
The joy of seeing these corrupt power brokers go down.
It's scary. I'm scared.
Certainly helped to mitigate this Democrat's disappointment at the loss.
Donald Trump thinks the ends justify the means because he won the election. And so, he's not going to talk about what might have actually contributed to it. I think that this pattern is just really disturbing.
Maybe if you would have had a fair Democratic primary process that put all the candidates forward and made the best win without the DNC basically choosing which candidate they wanted through setting the debate schedule a certain way and trying to get the media to do these hit pieces on Bernie Sanders and all of the things they did that really, really actively worked against Bernie Sanders, maybe you would have had the right candidate go forward and maybe we would have a different president right now.
Recently you said that the primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders. Later the same day you said you misspoke when you made those comments. Which is it?
Well, here are the facts. Hillary Clinton won the Democratic primary. Hillary Clinton also won the popular vote.
Now, SKDK's official mission is to use their arsenal of complicit government and media shills to tear down President Trump, even if it tears apart our country.
Look, the man is the President of the United States. It's sort of like being on an airplane. You want to root for the pilot. If you're on the airplane with the pilot, I mean, you don't want the pilot to screw up.
I believe that there was a connection between Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians and the Kremlin, and I do believe that those connections are there for a reason.
As the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, have you seen any evidence of any collusion between what I'll call Trump world, associates of campaign officials, Trump world and the Russians to swing the 2016 presidential election?
I'll give you a very simple answer. No.
No evidence of any collusion.
No evidence.
Does intelligence exist that can definitively answer the following question, whether there were improper contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian officials?
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand that, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
The idea that Donald Trump is some kind of an agent or a spy of Russia, or that he is being blackmailed by Russia and is going to pass secret information to the Kremlin and endanger American agents on purpose, is an incredibly crazy claim that has been nowhere proven to be true. It reminds me of the kind of things Glenn Beck used to say about Obama while he stood at his chalkboard and drew those unstable charts that he drew.
Infect the system, destroy it from the inside out.
These wild conspiracy theories that are without evidence.
What evidence is there that the Russians were behind this in terms of the hacking or in terms of the timing by WikiLeaks?
Well, we need to let the experts speak on this. It's been reported on in the press that the hackers that got into the DNC are very likely to be working in coordination with Russia.
What is the theory? I mean, I know they want an explanation for why Hillary lost.
I have no idea what the theory is.
So they're saying Russia thought that they would help Trump by putting out that Bernie Sanders was being screwed by the DNC. Well, who knows what would happen from that? Maybe the DNC would get wise and say, hey, let's run Biden instead. And it sure looks a lot more like it was Bernie Sanders supporters within the DNC saying this is a disaster. The Democrats are selling us down the river with Hillary.
Do any of you have a story that you hear about all the time that you think this story is not important and I don't want to hear any more about it?
We'll go with Russia, okay, because that was one of the things that's driving me absolutely mad.
The business of Washington relies on things not getting done, and this is a bipartisan imperative. If a tax reform bill passed tomorrow, if an immigration bill passed tomorrow, that's tens of billions of dollars in consulting, lobbying, messaging fees that are not going to be paid out.
Can you look right into the camera and say, I know for a fact the government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of John Podesta's email?
Absolutely. The government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of our institution and the dumping of information.
Of John Podesta's email.
Not only in the United States, but also in Europe,
Okay, you're not. You know what? You're dodging.
And Tucker,
no, look and say, I know they did. John Podesta's emails. They hacked those.
And I think that Ronald Reagan will be rolling over his grave.
Ronald Reagan.
And you're carrying water for the Kremlin.
I'm not carrying water for the. You're a sitting member of Congress on the Intel Committee, and you can't say they hacked.
You're gonna have to move your show to RT Russian television.
I've seen no evidence, and again, I would just say that media reports have gotten pretty far over their skis on this.
Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Are you a member of the Communist Party? Are you a member of the Communist Party?
The senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin.
McCarthyism means calling a man a communist who is later proven to be one.
We're here today to discuss the intelligence community's comprehensive review into Russian interference in our 2016 presidential election. For me, one of the most serious events of my public life.
Hillary Clinton also blames Russia for the leaks and now says military combat is an appropriate response to cyber attacks, like the one she thinks Russia did, even though she has no proof.
You've seen reports. Russia's hacked into a lot of things. China's hacked into a lot of things. Russia even hacked into the Democratic National Committee. Maybe even some state election systems. So we've got to step up our game. Make sure we are well defended and able to take the fight to those who go after us. As president, I will make it clear that the United States will treat cyber attacks just like any other attack. We will be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses.
In case you missed that, Hillary just said that the next time Russia is blamed for a hack, because there's no evidence whatsoever that they were behind the DNC hack, Hillary will fight them with a military response, threatening to declare war on Russia. You'd think that would be a big story, right? Yet virtually no big media outlet even highlighted it. Donald Trump has been savaged for being reckless with his words, yet here we have Hillary openly invoking military conflict with a global superpower, and the media gives her a free pass.
In America's strongest response yet to cyber hacking, the president is expelling 35 Russians accused of posing as diplomats. He's closing 2 Russian compounds believed to be used for spying, and he's sanctioning 4 of Russia's top military intelligence officers.
Do I believe that the Russians somehow influenced the American elections to elect Donald Trump as president? No, I think that's ridiculous. That's just not real life. It doesn't happen that way. And if it did happen, the White House has to present the proof to the American people and to let us judge on our own. And it has not done that.
President Obama was talking to Medvedev from Russia, of course, and his mic was open and he didn't realize it. And he said something that might be a little telling. Let's watch and then we'll analyze.
My last election, yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and I stand with him.
So that's really interesting for a number of reasons. But my favorite part is, I will transmit this information to Vladimir.
It was just last year that saw a major scandal in Europe with, it turns out, American intelligence agencies spying on European leaders, Angela Merkel, the United Nations, many international organizations.
You're turning into conspiracy theorists every night. You're like, the Russians hacked our elections. The Russians hacked our elections. Meanwhile, everybody in Latin America and the Middle East is like, oh, a foreign government tampered with your elections?
Did the Russian government have any collaboration or serious communication back and forth with Donald Trump's campaign during the election campaign last year?
The answer is very simple, no. And the fact that Russia is being demonized in that sense comes very strange to us.
If we find out that somebody on behalf of Donald Trump was on the phone or in email relations with somebody in Russia or the ambassador to America from Russia, and there was some sort of, as you call it, collusion, then what?
If they're the ones who came up with crooked Hillary, if they're the ones who came up with she's ill, something's wrong with her energy, and the way that he basically, described her in the campaign, I think that is something that would put the question squarely on the table whether or not he should be impeached.
Mr. Trump, we've come up with a great insult we believe will destroy Hillary Clinton. From now on, your orders are to call her Crooked Hillary.
If you could wave a wand and get rid of one thing in politics, what would it be?
Well, campaign financing. I would put an end to big money running politics.